Hey guys, Foxdrop here with the video on the 3 kings of the solo queue jungle right now. 3 pick/ban worthy junglers. When I say pick/ban, what I mean by that is essentially they're strong enough to be banned every single game if you want to, and if they don't get banned, you probably want to ask your teammate to first pick them because they're very popular and they're definitely worth picking up in that first rotation. If you're still confused, basically 3 junglers who are just really bloody strong right now. This is being made in partnership with their friends over at Pro Guys, who are all about helping you become better players. So much so that as part of your membership with them, you can chat anytime, anywhere with high-rated players to ask them questions to help you out. Quite nifty, eh? Now in this video today, I want to kind of give you some mini guides on these 3 champions as well. Not just tell you about them, but also tell you how to play them so that if you do want to play them, you should be able to after watching this video. Of course, these are champions who are highly contested right now. Like I say, they're picked quite a lot, they're banned quite a lot, but still, you should find yourself in some situations where you'll be able to play them if you want to. So the first champion that I want to mention for this video is going to be Graves. Graves is someone who throughout this whole season really hasn't been that popular whatsoever. It's only really this patch where he's come into popularity. Now Graves has been decent throughout the whole season. He's someone I've been practicing for the last few patches because if you watched some of my previous videos, you know I suck at this guy, but I wanted to get good at him. I enjoy playing him. He's a good like all-round versatile jungler as well. And on top of that, he's also a very simple champion. So unlike Lee Sin, for example, you don't have to worry too much about failing mechanically on him. The reason why Graves has gone from completely out of the radar to one of the best solo queue junglers is mostly because of the changes to lethality. Lethality as a stat now is really strong, and Graves tends to build a decent amount of it. You don't have to build a lot of lethality, and there are Graves players out there who are very good on him who don't even go lethality. But if you go Warrior Enchant into like Yumu's and then Edge of Night, you can 2-shot enemy carries if you've got Thunderlords. Like, it's genuinely crazy. You catch someone on the second part of your Q, you hit them with your ultimate, and you will probably one-combo most squishies. It's a really insane amount of damage, and on top of that as well, Edge of Night as an item overall, very solid right now, not just for the lethality, but the spell shield that it brings as well. But how exactly do you play Graves jungle? So first things first, your runes and masteries, you want something that looks like this. If you do find yourself going for that lethality build, then lethality red's a good choice, but if not, AD's fine. Thunderlords is pretty much a must on Graves as well right now. Not only is it really solid in itself, but you need 18 points in cunning for the precision mastery, the one that gives you extra lethality. And like I mentioned before with your item build, if you do want to go for lethality, then red smite into warrior, Yumu's, Edge of Night's a good core build. But to be honest, as long as it's got AD, you can't really go too wrong with it on Graves. Black Cleaver's a good item overall on him, always has been. Moorman Mortius is very solid if you're against AP matchups. And of course, there's always that early Phantom Dancer, which makes you a terror to duel. For your early game on Graves though, focus a little bit on farming. He's very good at doing that, but if you do find yourselves in situations where you can bully the enemy jungler, you certainly should. Graves doesn't really lose the 1v1 matchup to any champion in that early game, but you do have to be careful about how you play it because the majority of Graves' damage will come from using your Q. If you can't hit the enemy player with your Q, or you find that they dodge the second part of your Q, which has the most of the damage, you will find your DPS drop significantly. Often so much so that you will lose that 1v1. So generally speaking, you can do the 1v1, but try and line the enemy up against the wall so that when you Q them, your Q hits the wall and comes back faster before they can dodge. Outside of that, you're actually pretty good at ganking even though you have no CC. You've got a ranged auto attack and you have that little gap closer in your quick draw. You have a crap ton of burst damage, and once you hit level 6, you have that combo. The combo where you use your Q and your ulti, and as long as they get hit by the second part of your Q, they just blow up. Outside of that, you want to make sure you're not falling too far behind. You can farm very fast as soon as you get some AD items. And generally speaking, if you've gone for the lethality build, you can play as a bit of an assassin. If you can catch the enemy players up against a wall, you can fire your Q at them, fire your ultimate, weaving an auto attack or whatever in there as well, and you'll probably kill most squishies. And if in doubt in a team fight, just fire your Q through as many people as possible, followed by your ultimate, and you will do massive damage to loads of targets. Anyway, moving on to the second jungler, the second king of the solo queue jungle, Khazix. Khazix, no surprise, ready to see this guy on the list. He's been very strong for quite a while now. He actually did get nerfed last patch too, but he's still really bloody strong. Again, he's another champion who abuses lethality quite well. Yumu's, Edge of Night, similar build to what Graves goes, really solid on him. The great thing about Khazix, in my opinion, and this is probably why I think he's arguably the best solo queue jungler right now, is that he brings a lot to the table as far as early game ganking and snowballing goes. The amount of damage that Khazix can put out in the early game is absolutely insane, and he's a champion who really is an ultimate reliant. Like when you hit level 6, you do unlock that next level of power with your evolved abilities, but it's not like you need to play around that. It just increases your DPS, but it doesn't necessarily set up more of what you want to do. For example, there are loads of champions, like Vi and Mumu Nocturne, who when their ultimate is down, they're significantly weaker. Khazix doesn't have like an ultimate cooldown to play around. Even someone like Graves, for example, who we just mentioned, yes, his ultimate only increases DPS similar to Khazix, but he does have to play around that ultimate cooldown. Khazix, once he hits level 6, just has a steady DPS increase. On top of that, Khazix is arguably the best 1v1 champion in the game as far as duels go, as long as the enemy champion is isolated, especially in that early game. So it's really easy to hunt enemy junglers, because if you find them and you jump on them, chances are they can't fight you back. Throughout in build, pretty much similar stuff as what you would go on Graves. If it has AD, it will suit you pretty well. If it has lethality, it will suit you even better. And for your runes, you can do the same as Graves with AD or lethality reds, armor yellows, whatever blues you want to run, and then AD quints instead of attack speed. Masteries 12, 18, 0, Thunderlord's Decree, exactly as you would go on Graves. For your evolution order, you want to get your Q at level 6, and then you can either get W or E at level 11, and whichever one you didn't get out of those two, I'd recommend to get at level 16 as well. A lot of people in the LCS are going W evolution second, which I think is kind of more versatile in a sense. But for solo queue, I think your E is still extremely useful to have because it allows you to snowball really hard. So in my experience, I think if you're snowballing already, you're quite ahead, you're getting plays done, and having that evolution on your E can be really, really beneficial. But outside of that, you really can't go wrong with evolving your W. You just have to play a little bit safer than when you have your E. Outside of that, you can kind of do what you want to do in the early game as Khazix. If you find lanes that are open to be ganked, go ahead and gank them. It's really easy to gank lanes that have good setup though, because whereas Khazix does have a gap closer, does technically have a few slows in his passive and his W as well, to be honest, it's not necessarily that easy to execute. Like your W is really easy to miss, it's blocked by minions as well, your passive relies you to be in auto attack range, and your leap at that early level really doesn't take you that far. So if you've got someone that can set up the play for you, then it's pretty much free kill, so look to camp those lanes. Outside of that, look for the situations where the enemy team, the enemy carry specifically, are out of position. Just keep your eyes on the minimap and just think to yourself, if I were the enemy AD carry, or if I were the enemy squishy, where would I be right now? You can go really crazy. Make sure you buy that sweeper at level 9 as well, because if you're invading the enemy jungle trying to make a play, you need to make sure they don't know where you are. But outside of that, just find people out of position if you can. Try and get a little bit cheeky with it. And when it comes to the team fights, it's kind of a bit harder to play Khazix. It's not impossible, but it is harder. What you need to do is you need to look for your window of opportunity to jump in. If you jump in first, you're going to get focused down and instantly die. And if you're jumping on a carry who's around another person, which is not that uncommon in a team fight, you'll have significantly less damage on them. So my advice is either wait for the enemy carry to walk a little bit away from his teammates so you can jump on him, isolate him and kill him, or, and the more reliable way to do this, is to get someone else to initiate the team fight, draw the attention of the enemy team, and then sneak around the side some way and jump in when the enemy team isn't necessarily paying attention to where you might be. Especially in solo queue, that's a really effective way to play because you can guarantee they're not going to have the communication for like the enemy AD carry when he sees you. Help me guys, help me, I'm gonna die. He won't be able to say that. He'll just die. His team won't protect him in time. Anyway, moving on to the last champion on this list. No surprises here, boys and girls. It is the clawed kitty cat, Rengar. Rengar, again, another champion like Khazix who was nerfed last patch, but still really bloody strong. Not really a champion that's that good in the early game. He's not too bad, but it's kind of hard to set up plays on him. But really, Rengar's power unlocks later on into the game when he hits level 6. He's really, really powerful. His passive allows him to get an incredible amount of free attack damage. And just in general, Rengar is extremely annoying to play around. For your runes, you want to go either AD or lethality reds, armor yellows, whatever blues you want to run. And I would personally suggest attack speed quints, but you can go for AD as well. And for your masteries, 12, 18, 0, Thunderlord's Decree. Now your item build is where it gets a little bit strange here because Rengar isn't necessarily a champion that's really strong because he abuses lethality. He can abuse lethality, and if you want to do that, you certainly can. Just go for your red smite, warrior enchant with Yumu's, Edge of Night, standard stuff. Or you can do a more standard build, which is where you get the black cleaver and then you can go either tanky like Dead Man's Play, or you can mix it up a little bit, get Edge of Night. I've seen a lot of people do that where they go Warrior Enchant, Black Cleaver, Edge of Night. It seems to be a kind of mix between the standard build on Rengar and the lethality build. Either way, as he stands right now, Rengar's kind of a champion that's a bit hard to itemize incorrectly, so you can't really go too wrong. When you are playing the early game on Rengar though guys, he's a little bit hard to force the ganks with because he doesn't have a reliable way to set the plays up. He doesn't have any gap closer unless someone face checks him. His only CC ability is something that's easily dodgeable. So just in general, you don't have to make stuff happen in the early game. If you are going to do something, I'd recommend to actually invade the enemy jungle because Rengar's still very good in the 1v1s even though he can't necessarily set plays up. And if you're walking into the enemy jungle, chances are you might just find someone with their pants down and you can force the fight onto them. Plus it's always good if you invade the enemy jungle, you find the enemy jungler and you take him off the map, because then even if you're not ganking your lanes, it means that the enemy jungler isn't ganking his lanes either, so you kind of still have a way of exerting pressure without necessarily being able to do it directly. However, once Rengar reaches level 6 and after he gets his first big item, whether that's the Yumus or the Black Cleaver, he really does unlock a new level of power. Best way to be using your ultimate on Rengar is when plays are already happening, fights are already happening, and just to join in on the play. If you try and initiate the play with your ultimate, the enemy team does get that indicator that you're around and they'll probably play a little bit too passive, they'll back off and you won't necessarily be able to jump in on them. You'll need to practice a little bit how to use your ultimate effectively on Rengar because like I say, if you use it too early, you'll give them too much of a warning that you're around and you'll cock block yourself. So the most efficient way to use your ultimate, like I said before, either use it to join a play rather than starting the play, or just in general, hold on to your ult for as long as possible and only use it in the moment that you think that the enemy team doesn't have time to react to you. Depending how you build as well, if you have gone for that more tanky build, then you can just like jump in with your ultimate late game to start team fights. But if you have gone for a more squishy assassin build, don't do that. You will die very fast. Instead, obviously, just look for when you find the enemy carries that position and just jump on them and one-shot them. Anyway, that's what I want to say for this video, boys and girls. I hope you liked it. If you did, of course, chuck me that cheeky thumbs up. You can subscribe to me for more LEGO Legends content. You can find me on Facebook, on Twitter, and catch me streaming. Twitch.tv/Foxdrop. All those links are down below in the description, boys and girls. Most importantly, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you in my next video.